Well, welcome into another episode of Patrick Jones Baseball. All right, so in this episode, it's going to be a little bit different. So what I end up doing is I end up having someone come on and then they're going to interview me. I'm going to give you my own background and information. And also I'm going to talk about an exciting project that I've been working on lately. And so who I'm bringing on today is Nathan Collier. And Nathan is someone who has a background in sports journalism. He's a baseball coach. He is someone who's an expert in content. And so he's going to come on, give you a little bit of his background, and he's going to kind of turn the tables and interview me. And we're going to talk about an exciting project that we have going on that's going to really impact the baseball community. So hope you enjoyed today's episode of Patrick Jones Baseball. Nathan, thanks for coming on the podcast today.
Thanks, Patrick. Good to be here.
So for those who don't know who you are, can I give a little bit of your background and then your background in baseball?
Sure. Well, by day, I work with companies doing all kinds of like content and community building. Most of my work has been with like tech companies and manufacturing companies, people like that over the years. It's all client work these days. I've spent some years building teams inside of companies as well. But that's by day. By night, my life is often full of baseball. I'm a dad of two kids, 14 and 12. One's a freshman and one is in seventh grade. 10 years of coaching them. And then all the kids in our community, I live in a little community up in Yellow Springs, Ohio. It's like 3,500 people here in town. So we've got like 100 kids in our rec league. And I know most of them by name at this point, because that's what a small town is like. So I'm the president of the rec league. And then 2 years ago, my son started playing middle school ball. I just volunteered as the assistant just to kind of be there. And because what's better than being around your kid when you're playing baseball? And then last year I became the head coach. They were like, "Can you just coach the team this year?" So that was my introduction to being an official, like, paid coach. And you know how much, school coaches get paid, which is almost nothing. I spent all of it on baseball equipment, as you do. And then I'll do that again this year and probably next year as my younger one goes through the middle school team. So we'll see where I go after that. But yeah, love the game, grew up playing. I had an injury when I was a junior. I was never able to play beyond high school. Her tore my ACL playing soccer in the fall of my junior year. And that was it for me. But it's really been a joy to be back around the game the last 10 years as a dad and as a coach.
So for those who don't know too, Yellow Springs, Ohio, obviously it's a small town. It's a famous town, I would say. And I would say Nathan is the second most famous person in Yellow Springs, Ohio, the first being Dave Chappelle. So
Dave Chappelle. Yeah.
Yep. You're right behind him. Well, hopefully the bigger this thing grows, we can help your popularity in Yellow Springs and you can surpass him. But you're also, I believe, a former journalist and you used to actually cover baseball.
I did. My first quote unquote real job, this is 20 years ago now, so 2005, 2006. I was out in Marysville, California, and I was just covering like local sports, and it was a daily newspaper, and so I did like high school football and just anything that was going around. There were 17 high schools at junior college, and then we had a collegiate summer league there. They were known as the Yuba Sutter Gold Sox, which is in Marysville, California. There's now a team in the Pecos League that plays in that stadium, Marysville. So that was my introduction to, it was a lot of them were kids who had been drafted in later rounds and then had decided to kind of go back to school to increase their draft stock. And so they were spending the summer in that wood bat league. And so I think they played 40, 50 games. I forget how many. So yeah, that was great. I sat up in the press box and wrote stories and went down to the field and asked the kids questions and the coach questions after the games. But that was, I don't know, once you fall in love with baseball, you just, I think there's a lot of us who didn't get to play, who still want to be around the game one way or another. And just any chance I get to be at a field or on a field or around it and do it, mix it with my skill set. That's something I'm going to do. And that started all the way back in my early 20s.
Yeah. And I think the beauty of baseball is it truly is a team sport. And I think, kind of piggybacking on what you just said right there, I think that's what makes the game so great is you can have, so many different players on the team with different skill sets, even and strengths and weaknesses, and each one of them brings value to the team. So I think that's another thing that makes baseball just it makes it wanting someone to want to play, right? Where it's like, man, even if you're small, it doesn't matter. Like there's still a spot for you in the game.
Yeah, and baseball teaches you life lessons. I mean, even though I never became like a player, of any accomplishment, like the lessons I learned in baseball to this day are key to what I've done professionally in the last 20 years. So I learned a lot from playing sports, and baseball in particular was the main one for me.
Love that. Love that. Well, where should we go from here?
Well, I think I'm here to interview you. Yeah.
Okay.
Being a
All right.
former journalist, the idea being that you have not had anyone actually come on your show and pull out your story from you from beginning to end. We've heard little bits and pieces of it over the years. But is that okay with you if I ask you some questions?
Yep. Absolutely. Yep.
All right. So let's go all the way back. Tell me your what's your first baseball memory?
First baseball memory is probably playing t-ball. And just remember, just that's the thing in t-ball, right? Is like you pretty much you just hit the ball out of the infield. It's like it feels like it was a automatic home run, which was awesome at the time. And so you can hit a ground ball. It seems like to second base, and it's going to go under his glove and roll all the way to the wall. And so that's probably my
Yeah.
first memory of falling in love with the game was t-ball. And then I would say after that too, just honestly, a lot of it was just going to the park with my dad and just him throwing to me and me hitting and just kind of you're daydreaming while you're actually getting to play. And still to this day, probably the most fond memories I have and best memories I have in the game of baseball were those two memories is starting out in t-ball at young age and then going to the park with my dad.
Yeah. Same. My dad lives right down the road from me now, and he comes and helps me coach now my sons, which is baseball. Baseball as a generational sport, right? Is one of the
Yeah.
cool things about it. Where did you play? Like, where did you play as a kid? Little leagues, travel ball. What did that look like for you?
Yeah, it's definitely changed a lot. I mean, I actually played for my school. So CYO, which stands for Catholic Youth Organization. I don't even know if that's still around or
Mhm.
not. So I played them. And the thing is like back then it was one game a week. And if it was just ironic because it was Catholic, it was like every game was on Sunday. So I guess you're just missing church to go to these games, which I thought was kind of funny looking back. And I didn't start playing travel or anything. It was called Select back then. I played that starting when I was 12 years old. And that was like, remember, felt like it was a really big deal. Like you're practicing now 2 to 3 times a week. Who are, you have to be there like early for practice. You're playing tournaments now, and it feels like it's really serious. And then we went out of town one time per year. And it was like that was a big deal, right? Because you only did it one time. And so that started when I was 12. I did that when I was 12 and 13, and then I didn't play travel baseball. Although when I was 14, I thought I was going to be a basketball player at that point. And, my dad played professional basketball. He played college basketball at Pepperdine. He's 6'7", so I'm 6'3", so he's bigger than me. I thought I might be able to catch him, and so maybe that's why I wanted to do the basketball thing, but the goal was to play in the NBA. Did not make that goal, did not come close to that goal. And so, yeah, there was a little some time there where like kind of my identity was more on the basketball side. And then as I got into high school, I realized, my future is more so going to be on the baseball front. Didn't even play freshman year of high school baseball. I was hurt then, played summer. And honestly, Nathan, I look back on a lot of this as like, I actually would have been someone who would have greatly benefited from. I know this is a contrarian take, but I would have been someone who would have benefited from specializing in a sport a little bit earlier on because I was just
Yeah.
very raw and I needed a lot of reps to be able to figure out my body and just in general, I was just a raw player. Like everyone's a little bit different. And so I think that set me back by trying to do multiple sports at a high level. Again, I'm not saying that's the right thing for everybody, but looking back for myself, I wish I would have specialized in baseball at least a year or two earlier.
Yeah. Now you went to a fairly famous baseball high school, right?
Yep, Moeller High School. Canterbury Junior went there. When you go to, at least when I was there, you get every class, you get books, right? With the English class or whatever class it is, math class, you get the books, and then you're able to open the book and you see who wrote in the book in terms of you sign your name to register your book. And so it seemed like in every class there was 4 to 5 books someone had written in Canterbury Junior. Like, did he read all these books? Like, this is like amazing if he was like that smart of a guy. He was reading all these books. And so everyone
Right.
wanted to be like Canterbury Jr. And there's been a lot of other famous people there too. Barry Larkin went there and some other really, really good players. A lot of major league players went there. But I would say Canterbury Jr. and Barry Larkin are the two of the more famous players. And there's some interesting stories for sure when they were there. The most famous one I would say of Canterbury Jr. was at the time the coach was Mike Cameron, the head coach. He was there for forever. I think he was the head coach there for 40 years. He still helps out now. And I used to go back and I helped out coach for a year at Moeller when I got done playing. And he told me the story of Carenfree Jr., which I thought was hilarious. Where, of course, Carenfree Jr.'s dad, Carenfree Jr. Senior, or Carenfree Senior, I should say, not Junior Senior,
Yeah.
Carenfree
Yeah. Yeah.
Senior, played for the Reds, Big Red Machine. So obviously, his son coming up was getting a lot of notoriety, and people knew who he was, especially when he went to Moeller. And so once they started their off-season baseball work and had players up in the cages and hitting around, the head coach Mike Cameron's like, we saw him and we had heard all these things about him, obviously because of his dad, and we saw him just hitting off the tee, and we're like kind of looking at each other amongst the coaching staff like, this guy's not that great. He can't even hit the ball squarely off the tee. And then so they keep doing other drills, and before you know it, they put the machine on and then put the machine really fast, and Cameron Jr. gets in there and he's just destroying every single ball. And they're like, what the heck happened? And I guess what ended up happening was that was the first time in his life he had ever hit a ball off of a tee. He never
Oh, I
hit a
didn't
ball
even
off of
know.
his tee ever. His dad would never let him hit a ball off a tee. And so that was the first time he ever hit a ball off a tee. I thought that was hilarious, where they went from thinking, this is we got some really good player, to, oh, this guy's not that good, to, oh, he is really good, and it's just because of he never did the tee before.
Interesting. He probably didn't even have it like in the right place in his stance to
No,
even
he probably had
know
no
how to
idea
do
what
it.
to do with that thing.
Yeah. What was your high school experience like? Because I'm from Ohio. I know Moeller because Moeller shows up in the news every few years as, a state finalist in the D1 tournament. So what was that like for you?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, a lot of really good players, really good competition going there, very competitive. I think probably going back to what I said earlier about specializing, I think that's one of the reasons I wish I would have specialized a little bit earlier, is just because the competition is so high, and your competition is playing year round. And unless you're one of the top players in the country, which I wasn't, I mean, you have to continue to get better and develop, and so it was really competitive. Like most kids, I thought I was better than I actually was, which is not necessarily a bad thing. You do need to believe in yourself, but I think I wish I would have spent. And this sounds crazy now, but even back then, the weight room, things like that, like, it was encouraged and obviously is a thing, but it never clicked for me that, like, man, you getting stronger is going to equate to you being able to hit the ball further and being a better baseball player. So I loved hitting. I would hit all day long, but I didn't know what I was doing from a hitting standpoint. I wasted a lot of time in the cages doing stuff that was not beneficial at all. And looking back, obviously, maybe you could say it is beneficial because I'm able to help guide players on what not to do. But
Right.
I would say that's probably more so my experience is wishing I would have specialized earlier, and just it being, there's just a lot of really good players up there.
Yeah. When did you started eventually, right? When did you start with them?
Well, I didn't actually start. So that's the thing too. I tell people, because it is, and I've had players now that I've worked with from a recruiting standpoint who have played at Moeller who didn't start until their senior year and event and ended up going
Yeah.
to play Division I college baseball. And so I didn't actually start to my senior year either to play
Yeah.
college baseball, because I was playing basketball and doing other stuff earlier on. And so it was like getting reps in, and then coaches to see you is like, it just, in Ohio, you only have so much time. And so that's the thing, is I didn't end up starting till I was a senior. And then even then I played okay. I didn't get any offers or anything until the fall of my senior year, actually, from a college baseball standpoint. I remember back then, I think the first day that they could call, it was like middle of June or middle of July. I didn't get a single call from any coach, D1, D2, D3, NAI, JUCO, nothing. And then fall of my senior year, I got 3 offers, Division I offers, within 1 week. And so I think that's the thing too, is just being patient, and just, you have to be process oriented. And if you're not that way, a lot of times we end up losing a lot of players who end up quitting because they have these expectations. And then when you don't meet those expectations or get the outcome you want, you end up not wanting to play. So luckily, I love baseball so much. I was willing to do whatever it took, but it was a little bit of a unique journey, I'd say.
Yeah. When you were there other kids around you who got recruited right away?
Oh yeah, definitely. A lot of other kids who got recruited right away. And maybe not a lot of kids, but definitely there were several kids that I knew or played with, and of course, they were playing the premium positions. They're playing shortstop, they're playing up the middle, and maybe overall they played better at the right time. They were on maybe certain teams, but but I didn't see a ton of it, but there were definitely I did have a few friends who were getting calls and things like that right away. And also back then, the other thing is there weren't these roster rules, right? So if a coach is going to offer a
Yeah.
player, it kind of if the player doesn't work out, it's no skin off their back. They have 40 players that they can bring in or 45 players, whereas a little bit different now. But there was a couple, but not a ton.
Yeah. Did you feel like you expecting offers at that point? And
Yeah, I think I mean, in
were
the sense of you're
what
a
was that
little bit
like?
yeah, you're a little bit again, a little bit delusional. At the same time, deep down, I wasn't expecting any because I knew that I hadn't really played in front of a lot of college coaches, and I guess when I did play, I didn't play that great, maybe. So I think I wasn't surprised because I wasn't really I hadn't social media wasn't a thing back there. Rankings weren't really that big of a thing. And so it's kind of like if there's a coach watching at the game at that time because it was a big deal and there wasn't that many coaches who were there watching. So I wasn't that surprised. But again, you're kind of delusional in one sense. So you do hope that there are
Right.
going to be some kids or some schools who maybe do call you. But it is what it is. And then there was also a time I'm trying to think. This was my sophomore year. Like there were certain teams that I tried out for the summer I got cut from, and then 2 years later they asked me to come play on their team too. So it was just an
Yeah.
interesting experience.
What happened between the opening of the recruiting window and the fall of your senior year that led to 3 D1 offers? Was it you playing really well in your junior year? Was it you reaching out? What were the things that you did that led to that?
It definitely wasn't me reaching out. I mean, it sounds weird to say. I didn't even really know. I don't ever remembering that you could reach out or email schools or that you should be doing that. Like I had no idea at all. At least nobody told me
Mm.
that. And so I didn't really do that. I it was a little bit just organic where obviously you're a year older, so you're a little bit better. I went to a few different events and I performed well at those events in front of some college coaches. And then honestly, I think being at a school like Moeller and people knowing Moeller and having success there, that definitely did help a little bit when it comes to
Yeah.
getting my name out there. But it was really a couple events that I went to and just happened to play well at the right time. But I didn't reach out to any schools. Not that I thought I was above that. I didn't know how, and I didn't know that you should be doing that.
Yeah. But why Xavier?
It was the best. Well, for one, it was the best offer, and it was one of those things where they wanted me. I felt like they wanted me more than the other schools. I didn't want to go to Xavier actually originally. I thought I was better than I actually was, and so my plan was to go to a junior college, and I was going to go to a specific junior college. I won't name the junior college because I don't want to make them feel bad, and also I don't think they would feel bad because they are one of the best in the country. But I was going to go to this junior college, and my plan was to go there for a year or two, and then transfer to an SEC type of program because at the time that's what I thought. Right, I thought I was an SEC type player, even though I wasn't, and so I'm really happy that didn't happen. And so I actually turned down the offer from Xavier the night before signing day. They were kind of like, dude, we need to know tomorrow's signing day. And they're like, yeah, I think I'm actually going to this JUCO. So I turned it down. And then my uncle called me that night because he knew the signing day was the next day. And he said, hey, basically calling me to congratulate me because he thought I was going to go to Xavier. And I told him my plan. He pretty much said like that was the stupidest plan he'd ever heard in his life. And that, you're playing a dangerous game and there's so many unknowns and risks with going to a JUCO versus going to this place where you're wanted, you're going to get an education, you're kind of covering your own end type of a thing. And so the more I thought of it, I was like, man, he's actually right. And so that same night I got back on the phone with Xavier and I said, hey, if the offer's still good, I actually will sign. And then so the next day I did sign and with Xavier. So that was a wild, whirlwind of itself. But the thing is, and that's the thing, it was a third party, right? It wasn't my parents. My parents didn't really know. And then
Yeah.
you're a parent. And so it's like, there's only so many things you can kind of give your opinion on and have your kid listen to you. So I got very lucky that my uncle did kind of take me under his wing and give me that advice. Otherwise, I really don't know where I'd be.
Yeah. Even as a parent, even if you give advice to your kid, they may or may not listen to it
Right.
anyway. The other guys I coach with, we have this little agreement that if I want my son to do something that he's not doing, I'll have the other coach
Yeah.
tell him. And I'll do the same with
Yeah.
that coach's kid because he'll do it for the other coach. He's very coachable with any coach
But you,
not named Collier. He's pretty coachable with me too, but he's exceptionally coachable with the other coaches,
Well, and then that
especially
makes
when we're
sense, right? Because it's like you're telling him other stuff too that, his homework and
yeah,
chores, and it's like after a
yeah,
while, it's like, man, he's gonna tune you out.
yeah, yeah. If I can get the varsity coach to come over and tell him something, that's like gold standard. He'll
Yeah,
do
right.
anything, right?
You'll run
That the,
through a
the
wall for
varsity
him.
coach
Yeah,
comes over and
yeah.
says, yeah, 100%. So we did that. We did that this week with some infielding stuff that I've been trying to get him to do, and he, 20 minutes later, he's doing exactly what he should have been doing the whole time. So that tracks.
Yeah.
What was Xavier like?
Well, that's the thing. And this is what I think my experience does help me a little bit with helping players in the recruiting process. When I visited there, I didn't like it at all because it was like the buildings were all gray. The day I visited, it was a dark, gloomy day, a typical Ohio day in the fall, as you well
Yeah,
know. And so when I visited there, I was like, man, I really didn't want to go there at all. Ended up, obviously, I went there and it was like the best years of my life. It was nothing like the time I went to go visit it at all. Like nothing like that. And so it was a blast. Incredible people, incredible teachers there, coaches. I loved it. Loved the size of the school, the campus. So it was an incredible place, and it was the perfect fit for me. And I think a big part of that was the people. That's what it comes down to. But that's why I'm always like, kids go to visit schools, they like it, they don't like it. It's like, you don't put too much stock into that. You really don't know until you actually go to the school. Because again, what was the weather like that day? How are you feeling that day? What were you doing on that actual visit itself? And so, my own experience not having a great visit didn't really mean anything in terms of the experience I had going to school there. I ended up loving it. And the visit I didn't think
yeah.
was that great, more so probably for personal reasons, anything else.
What kind of player were you? So, but by this point, you've got enough reps. You've made it into a D1 program. What kind of player were you?
I was a player who struggled with the mental side of the game, confidence. I definitely had the athleticism. I still was raw. I still had some potential, but I had no idea how to hit. I never really had anybody teach me how to hit, teach me what an approach was, teach me how to work in a cage or practice, teach me what drills I should be doing or shouldn't be doing or what I should be focusing on. I had no idea on any of that stuff, even just the simplest stuff at all. I mean, that wasn't it seems like how could that possibly be nowadays, but it just wasn't like that back then, which wasn't even
Yeah,
that long ago. So I was just raw. I went up to the plate and I tried to swing at pitches I thought I could hit, and honestly, that was it. And then when I started failing, I would go to the cage and hit off the tee for an hour by myself and not really know what to focus on or anything. I just loved hitting and wanted to get better and thought that would fix stuff. And that I pretty much did that for the rest of my career because again, I didn't really know what else to do, and from a hitting standpoint. And so I really could have benefited a lot from just the mental side of the game and mental performance and some of the stuff that I'm sure we'll obviously eventually get into when we talk about the membership that we have going on in our community. But at the time, I didn't have anything at all to piggyback on. So I was just a very streaky player, I'd say is probably the best way to describe myself. Where if I was getting rolling, I was like, man, I'm a really good player. I'm good. I'm confident. And then the second I started to struggle, the doubt started to creep in and I had no way of really knowing why or getting myself back on track or anything like that. So I'd say the best way to describe myself was being a streaky player.
yeah. Were you a guy with power? Were you speed? Did you have like a hallmark, like a strength?
Probably more the power. I wouldn't say it was like crazy power. I would say probably if we're gonna, it's similar to in today's metrics. I'd say around 100-mile-an-hour exit velo, but it wasn't
Yeah,
anything crazy. And then outfield velo, I probably projected more as a corner outfielder. Got a lot better later on in my career when I knew how to play defense a little bit better earlier on. Again, I didn't really care for so much about defense, and then I got replaced a lot of times defensively late in games in college, and so I started to realize the importance of defense, and then figuring out what I needed to do to get better from a defensive standpoint. So I would
yeah.
say that those are the main things.
Yeah, anything to be on the field, right? I mean, that's what I know now is that if I could do it all over again, I would have done anything to just have more time on the field.
Yeah. Yeah, and at the time, I think what ended up happening is I had so many people tell me, if you hit, they'll find a place for you to play. And so what that did is that created this thing in my mind where it's like, you don't even worry about defense. Like, just focus all your attention on doing nothing except hitting. And which, I
Yeah.
mean, they weren't wrong by saying that, but that did make me a worse defensive player, and it did get me replaced, and it cost me playing time because I didn't focus as much on the defense because I was so obsessed with hitting, since that's the only thing that was emphasized to me.
Yeah. So you get toward the end of Xavier, your experience at Xavier. Did you play 4 years, five
I
years?
was
How
there
long did
for
you play there?
5 years. That's the other thing. I ended up having some injury issues. I ended up tearing my hamstring off the bone, so I had to get it
Oh,
reconstructive
oh,
surgery to get it reattached. And quite frankly, I was never the same. I still am not the same to this day. I mean, I go and play pickup basketball, and it's like it's so weird when you used to be able to just explode around somebody, and just now it's like I can't. I feel like an old man. I know I can't explode past anybody anymore. And so I never really got that. I never was the same after that from a speed or explosive standpoint. Hitting wise, I was, but I ended up not getting drafted or anything like that. And but I still wanted to play. I still thought I could, the dream of playing in the major leagues was still there, even though looking back, I had zero chance as 23 years old, 22 years old. That's really old in professional baseball, as crazy as it sounds. But I wasn't ready to give up, and I didn't really want to end on a bad note. And so I ended up playing independent professional baseball for a couple years. 1 year was in the Empire League. I don't even know if it's still around anymore, up in New York. And then the next year it was in the Pecos League, and you got paid $57 a week. I would give lessons before games, and at the end of that season, towards the end, I was like, man, I'm 25 years old making $57 a week. I might need to move on here. You can't get any lower professional baseball than that. And it was a blast. I don't regret it at all. But I think at that point, I was kind of like, I need to move on. And that's what ended up happening. And I got the podcast rolling, and things started happening
yeah.
from there.
So that's really interesting because that's a moment when for the rest of us, we go find a different career other than baseball.
Yeah.
But you found a way to stay in it, right? Right from the start, you transitioned out of it nicely. How did that happen?
Well, I didn't really know necessarily how. I knew my personality and just how I am in general is like working for other people. I didn't think would be a very good thing. And then I also was like, man, I couldn't imagine doing anything other than baseball. I just could not do it. And so I ended up moving back home after obviously the season. And my buddy at the time, who was he used to coach me, and then he was the head coach of a high school. It was a smaller program in Cincinnati. His name's Scott Stalker. He's a great dude. And it was Madeira High School. And so he ended up asking me, he needed a JV coach at the time. And I had nothing else going on, obviously. And so he said, it's $2,000. You'll be the head coach. You can do whatever you want. You're the only coach though. So like I was the head assistant coach, trainer, everything for that JV team.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, like that was the most fun I've ever had in my life coaching, even to this day, was that very first year. And I think it was because I literally could do whatever I wanted, whenever I wanted, in terms of practicing and doing, it didn't matter what it is, practice design, in-game situations. Again, it was the expectations were so low. It was hard to,
Yeah.
really get up in atoms about anything. And so, but during that time, I wanted to get better at coaching. And so that's why I started the podcast and interviewing other coaches. And then I'd go to different conventions and things like that. And so I just kind of just became obsessed with it, and it just continued to grow from there.
Yeah. So you were coaching, and I know you coached in some of the independent leagues. You kind of had a
I
few
didn't
different
coach in
stops,
any,
right?
I didn't coach in any independent leagues. I coached high school baseball. I coached college summer league, and I've coached travel and
Summer
then
league.
professional.
It was the collegiate summer league I was thinking of because
Yep.
I remember we were talking about that
Yep. Yeah.
previous conversation. And then you got some attention and found your way into a big league organization, right?
Yeah. I went from coaching freshman high school baseball to the following year being a hitting coach in the Baltimore Orioles organization.
How did that happen?
I think it, like anything else, I think, and this is one of the things that I look for too when I'm looking to hire people on, is the older I get, the more I'm looking for. Of course, you need to know what you're doing, but you're looking more so for attitude than anything. You're looking because you can teach people how to do a lot of stuff anyway. And so I lucked out because I was very hungry to learn. And I did the podcast. I was on social media. I would, spend all my money going, buying every single course I possibly could, or flying all over to meet in different conferences or learning different things. And so by doing that, you end up developing relationships plus knowledge. Plus, I'm working with players, so I'm getting better, and you're starting to connect the dots. And within doing that, you end up putting yourself in a position to meet the right people who are looking for somebody who has those qualities and that attitude. And that got me an interview with the Baltimore Orioles and ended up getting hired right there. So I think it's a testament to, a lot of different things, of course, but it does come down to just attitude and just determination.
Yeah. What was that like working as a hitting coach in a big league organization?
I learned a ton. And I think if anyone ever gets the opportunity to be a coach in the minor leagues at an affiliate, they should have to take it if they want to be coaching at any level, because I think it teaches you so many different things about the game. You quickly realize a lot of the overkill stuff, a lot of the stuff that's will not work at the highest levels of the game. And so it makes you teach it differently now at the younger levels of the game, knowing now what you know, having worked with players at a 100+ game season and professional baseball. So it gave me a huge advantage, I felt like, and just in coaching and helping players at the younger levels by being a hitting coach in a professional organization for a 100+ game season, just because you now see what works and what doesn't work, and how the best players in the world still struggle mentally, just like how a 12-year-old does. And so there's a lot of similarities. And so that I'd say that's probably the biggest benefit. And then just there's a lot of really smart people too in professional baseball and in these organizations. I personally would not want to go back again. I have no desire to, I was there for 2 years. I have no desire to go back into professional baseball. But I think I think it was so vital for my own development, and it's allowed me to help so many players now at younger levels because of it.
Yeah. You got exposed to the draft too, right?
Yeah, I mean, I was able to help out the scouting department when I was there. I was able to help, and kind of peek behind the scenes and see what's going on from the draft standpoint and all these different things too, and what they're looking for, and talk with other scouts within the organization, and watch video and all these different things too. So I was able to help out with that too, which again, it does help me for what I'm doing now, which is helping players in the recruiting process, and then helping players figure out, even if it's from a draft standpoint, go to draft or go to the, enter in terms of entering in professional baseball or college baseball. And so you can kind of know what are going to be some of the roadblocks and the pros and cons of both. So I was lucky I was able to help out with the draft when I was there too. Now, how much, my say mattered into what players that they took, that's another story, but who knows?
You give your recommendation, right?
That's right.
And then it's the guys at the top who make the choice. So what is your job today?
Today, I feel like I have a lot of different jobs, but my main job is I have a college baseball recruiting service where I help high school baseball players and guide them and their families throughout the recruiting process. And so what that entails is me reaching out to college coaches on their behalf, because I have relationships with hundreds of coaches at all levels across the country because of a lot of the things that I've, already previously said over the last, 8 years that I've done. So I do that. And then I'm guiding them on what camps to go to, what not to go to, what they should focus on from a development standpoint. Obviously my background's in development. So if they need, bat speed training program, if they need help on the mental game, if they need help on any of that stuff, then I help them with that too. And so that's what I do full time right now. And obviously, excited to be able to eventually, kick off this community that I know we've been working on to be able to
Yeah.
help more players throughout their recruiting process and journey in the amateur level from a development standpoint too, because there's a lot of people who don't really know what to do. And Nathan, I don't know a lot about like most of the things on this planet, but if there is one thing I do know a lot about, it is the college baseball recruiting process.
The people you work with, it's such a hands-on service. You can't work with that many of them at a time, right? Is that
No,
so? You have a
I
limited
limit it.
bandwidth.
Yeah, I limit it to 10 players per class. And so anytime I have a player who commits in a class, that opens up another spot. But I never take on more than 10 per class because it is so hands-on, and because, there's different times of the year where it's like you may be talking to people every single day, right? You're going back and
Yeah.
forth. And so you can't manage, at least I can't manage 70 players, 80 players, just one person. And so that's why I only keep it just 10 per class at a time. And that's just all you can really do, at least from what I've seen, and do a good job that you're proud of.
Yeah. So then that brings us to this community that you and I have been working on together
Mhm.
for the last couple of months. What is the idea with launching a new community for this audience, for people who need help or want to learn more about the recruiting process?
Well, I think that the idea is, and I'm in this space full time, and I think you wanna have a dog in the fight who doesn't have any skin in the game. And so what I mean is, it's hard for parents to know who to trust, and because everyone has an agenda. I mean, let's face it, everyone has an agenda. I have an agenda. Everyone has an agenda. It's trying to figure out whose agenda is gonna benefit you the most. And so when a lot of these parents and families are maybe going, maybe they're getting emails about camps or talking with coaches about camps or talking to people who run travel baseball organizations, or this is like everyone has an agenda. Whereas for this community, the agenda is literally just helping you, like answering your questions. Like I get no benefit at all if you end up signing to go to LSU versus, Division 3 school or whatever.
Yeah.
And so I think that that's kind of the biggest value of this community is one going to be the aspect of the knowledge that I have, the background that I have, the relationships that I have from a player development and then specifically, obviously, a college recruiting standpoint, but obviously just giving you unbiased answers to your questions on where you stand in the process, where your son stands, the timeline more specific, probably for him, and then just how the entire thing works. Because I don't have a dog in the fight in this community, so it's not like I
Right.
have a travel organization. It's like if I get a player commits, I put it up on social media and all this great stuff. It's more so just we're there to be able to help and answer questions, and I think that's the thing for me is I've been able to build a good reputation in this industry by being honest. And so some people don't like it if I'm being honest, but I sleep well at night knowing that I'm honest with people, and that's why most people who even reach out to me to work with me one on one, I do not work with, because I have to be very careful who I pick and choose, because I'm so protective of my name and my brand, since I'm only qualified to do this one thing at this point in my life, and so I have to be careful on
Yeah.
what I say for the next 50 years that I'm doing this thing.
Right. And I know, speaking it from the parents' perspective, we parents are all a little bit, I'm not sure who's more delusional about the skills of the player, is the player or the parent. Probably it's a mix.
Yeah.
But all of our parents think our kid's going to be the next D1, top round draft pick. And so I think the idea of having, that objective, just an objective voice we need that. We
Yeah.
need that as parents. And definitely the players do too.
Yeah, and I mean, I think the thing is obviously I do my best to give that feedback in a way that's not, and that's something that I always feel like I'm working on, is like, how do you give that feedback without killing someone's dreams or anything like that? Because that's not what I want to do at all. But I do want to be honest, and so that way you can make decisions, and whether you decide to take that information and do something with it or not, I think just being honest is the most important thing in this entire process anyway. And at least I would say that's going to be the biggest benefit for people in the community is the honesty, and then just the knowledge that I have, having now worked with players who have gone to every single level of the game, as well as the relationships I have with coaches. Because that's the thing too, is things change, right? The rules
Yeah.
change, the coaches change jobs, they change levels, and so different things change. And so what might be the case in 1 month is maybe coaches are now going about it a completely different way on the recruiting trail in a different month. And so I think that's the thing, constantly being able to update people on what's actually going on, not just what hearsay is or anything like that, I think will be very beneficial, and it will save them a lot of time and money.
Yeah. Just so for those parents and players listening, are there a couple of just the big ones? What are the big mistakes that people make in the recruiting process? Just as as a preview of what people will be exposed to as if they join the community or listen to the podcast more or really just follow any of your content.
Well, I think that the biggest thing is not first starting out and figuring out like why you're doing this. Like, what does success look like at the end of this? Is it in that? And there's no judgment at all. But I think it's so important because for myself, for example, I didn't really know what I necessarily want. I knew what I was trying to get to per se, but I didn't know that like, oh, there's going to be different roads you could take to get there. Or, hey, actually, if you go to, Xavier, which is a great school, and you play well there, like you can get drafted just like you could at some other place too. And so I think just figuring out what your end goal is and then reverse engineering it back. And I think too many people get caught up in, which is normal. I mean, I'm guilty of this. We all are, of the status games, of the status of Division 1 or playing Power 4 or anything like that, and not really thinking about what they want long term, what the long term goal is. It could be go to the highest academic institution possible. Maybe that's the end goal. Awesome. There's going to be different timelines and different, and that's a different roadmap for those types of parents and players. Maybe for you, it's to play Division 1, and it's like, okay, that's a different timeline. There's different things you need to go to and then not go to and focus on to get that. And then there's going to be other players where it's like, hey, you may need to go to a JUCO, and it's like, what JUCO do you go to? Well, there's a million of them out there, but there's certain ones you should go to if you end up wanting to go and get to that Division 1 level or wherever it is. And then, so I think that's the thing is it's the biggest mistake that I see is people just don't have they haven't took the time to really think about what they want at the end of all this and what is actual success. And so once you do that, then you can kind of step through it and have an actual plan to go through and get to that endpoint that you want. And it may look different. You may start out at going to a Division 2 school or whatever it is, and you go there and you play right away, and then you go to a Division 1. But I think that's the thing. That's the biggest mistake is just not thinking about what you want at the end and then reverse engineering it.
Where can people go if they want to join the new community?
Yeah, so the new community is going to be on a platform called School, and so what I'll do is I'm going to be able to put that link in the show notes on this podcast, and so you can click on that link and be able to join right there. I'm also going to tweet about it on my Twitter account, and then also put it in my email as well too. So if you're listening to this or watching this, you just hit the link in the description, whether it be in the show notes or if you're watching on YouTube in the show notes there too. And then you can join there and, I'll be in there on a regular basis.
And I'll be there too because I'm helping moderate. So you'll be able to see me too. Patrick, thanks for handing me the mic. This was fun.
Yeah, no, thanks for coming on. And again, I'm very excited for this because it's just something that I've thought about for 5+ years, but I knew that I couldn't pull this off on my own. And so I needed somebody. It's kind of one of those things. I needed somebody, but I didn't know who I needed. And so it's like the old saying of like, the teacher appears when the student's ready. And so it's kind of like, you appeared right when I was ready, but I didn't know it until I knew it.
Yeah, cool. Well, great. Well, I look forward to spending a bunch of time with you and then anybody else who joins. I know from my perspective as somebody with a player who also doesn't quite know what he wants in college yet, because my guy's a freshman, he's a pitcher, and
Yep.
we'll see where that goes. A lot of the content that you put out has already helped us begin to ask the right questions. And so I look forward to being able to help other people with the same kind of content.
Awesome. Looking forward to it.